And we are live. G'day everyone, Mike Jeffrey here, and you are listening to My Creative Journey, episode number 45. To all you listeners out there, hello, and thank you so much for taking the time to stop by here today. As I said, my name is Mike, and I'm a photographer, podcaster, and small business owner based here in Port Macquarie, Australia. Each week on the show, I bring you guys along on the highs and lows of my own creative journey and share all the knowledge that I've gained along the road to building my own freelance business. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking all about my experiences with financial anxiety. It's something that I've gone through a couple of times in my business, and I really want to be able to shed a light on that and some of the things that I've been going through on this podcast, because I've always been wanting to be open and transparent with you guys, and that is one of the biggest aims that I've had on this podcast, is to be open with the experiences that other people don't seem to talk about in their own businesses, but also in their own personal lives as well. And I want to be able to create a space where talking about your own personal finances, your own personal struggles is really able to be done, because I don't think there is always a space for that out there. And I think it's so important to be able to articulate the way you're feeling about those types of things. But before we jump into that, I just want to talk about what has been going on for me this past week. And as you guys know, as I spoke about in last week's episode, I sent out my 2022 calendars last week. So they'll hopefully have arrived to you guys if you've already ordered one. If you had ordered one in the pre-sale, they would have arrived by now. And I've been hearing from a few people saying how nice they are. And I'm very, very grateful for everyone who's ordered them and everyone who has been able to give that feedback, because it's really nice to be able to hear from some people who have been ordering them. But I wanted to speak about today that I've got 10 left. So I've over-ordered on the calendars on the pre-order, and I've got 10 more left if anyone would like to order one. Now, I've got one here. If you are watching the video version, you can see the 2022 calendars right here. I'm holding one. These will be available today as this podcast comes out. So I've got 10 more left. They'll be available today, which is the 26th of November on Friday. There'll be 10 left. So I suppose first in, best dressed to get those first 10. They'll be up there for $25 each if you guys are interested in grabbing one of those calendars, and they'll be there until they're all sold out. So I'm trying to get them out now so that you guys will be able to have them before Christmas. I know a few people have been ordering them as Christmas gifts for other people, which is really nice as well. Been ordering a few of the calendars, so that's really nice. And I got a couple of messages last week asking if I've still got any available. So I've still got 10 left. If any of you guys are interested in grabbing one, I'm really happy with the way that they've turned out, and I'm really glad to be able to get that all sort of wrapped up now, because so I feel like it's a project that I've been working on for quite some time now. So to be able to get those last few out would be really nice. And if you guys are interested in, I will leave a link to where you can pick one up in the description of this podcast, wherever you are listening to it at. But I really don't want to spend too much time on the introduction this week. I'm recording this episode a couple of days after I've recorded the last episodes, and not much has actually happened through this past week, and I'll probably speak on something else in the next episode. But I really wanted to use this episode to speak about a couple of my experiences and a couple of things that I've gone through in the stage of my own business, in the course of actually starting and trying to run my own photography business, but also a couple of things that have happened more recently throughout the probably end half of this year, and it's something that I really wasn't sure that I was going to make an episode about it. I really want to be able to speak about a lot of things, but it can be hard. It can be hard to talk about some of these things. And so I know that if it's a harder thing to talk about, I know it's probably important. And I know that there are other people out there probably experiencing things like I am. So I really want to be able to shed a light on those different types of things and be able to speak about them in a way that other people can understand and other people can relate to. So that is always something that I've been wanting to do here on the podcast. So when I first started my photography business, it was one of the biggest things for me was I was very skeptical about whether I should start an actual business in photography. It was always something that I did as a hobby, but I was never really sure whether I should start it as a business, because one of the big things for me was that it needed to be sustainable and it needed to be able to produce me an income. And that was one of the big things at the start, which I was unsure whether that would be able to produce me an income, whether I'd be able to make that sustainable through having a business in photography. I'd always enjoyed it outside of that. I never wanted to get to a point where it started to become work and it started to become hard to do. It started to become a chore. And then also it became hard to be able to get myself out there, to be able to get work. And that was always one of the big things for me. And it's always continued, I think, to be one of the biggest things in business, is trying to advertise myself, trying to be able to get work. You know, you can be as confident as you are in your own work, you can have the greatest skills you want, but if no one actually sees your work, no one actually books you in, then you can't be working for anyone. And working as a freelance photographer or freelance, any sort of artist, creative, any type of person, if you're not getting your work seen out there in front of those people to be able to book you in for that work, then at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how good you are, because if no one's booking you in for that work, then it doesn't really matter because you're not getting paid. You're going to be quickly out of business. So that was one of the hard things for me walking into this business and walking into starting a business in something that I really enjoyed, in a craft that I really enjoyed up before then. I'd been working as a photographer just as a hobby, I guess, for about 18 months before. And it was never something that I wanted to do as a career because I didn't think it would be sustainable. And I never thought that I'd be able to make any money in it. And I didn't want to really be able to push myself to get clients. I didn't know how to be able to do that. So that was something that I had to sort of jump over in the beginning. But I'm very glad of where it's come to now. And I'm very glad that I have the clients I do. I've been able to work with some amazing people and over the course of the year, and I'm continuing to build into next year, which is really nice. And I'm really thankful for all of that. But yeah, it was one of the big things at the start was not knowing if that would be financially viable, and not knowing the ins and outs of it, not knowing how much money you'd have to spend on a lot of different things. I think from the outside, I think any creative career seems like it can be very financially viable. And in fact, it probably can, because most of the expenses you have are up front, and then afterwards there's not a lot of other expense after that. You're not producing a product. I mean, most of the time you're not producing a product, so you're just working off a service that you're providing. So you're earning money based on your skill set. So you're trading that skill set to be able to get some sort of money from someone else, and most of the time that can work out very well in your favor. Especially financially, because there is no output there. There's no expenses, no overheads. Most of the time, if you're working from home, there's a lot of other things that don't have to happen. But the upfront cost, I think, is something that a lot of people forget, in that starting these businesses, it can be very hard, and there's big upfront costs, but there's also other costs throughout the course, and things that you will need to be able to take care of. You do need to have some sort of income to maintain those sorts of things and be able to be sustainable in business. It's not like I could have just walked in and purchased everything up front, and then I would have never had another expense ever again. So there are all those types of things that you do tend to forget about when starting a business, and those were the things that I was trying to understand, I think, at first at the start, because I didn't know a lot about the industry. It wasn't something that I'd ever known anyone who was a photographer before, so I didn't really know much about the industry. I just knew that I liked photography. So sort of jumping in there was hard when you don't really know much about the ins and outs of the industry. So trying to understand that, but then also trying to find a spot where I could feel comfortable in understanding how much I could possibly earn, but then how much my expenses would possibly be. And so that was one of the biggest things I did at the start. I think the other part that scared me was that creativity is often uncertain, insecure, a little bit insecure work, not knowing whether the work would be continual. So it's still a struggle to this day, and not knowing that I have work every month, every week. I don't have work lined up forever into the future. So that is going to be something that I'm going to have to continue to advertise, continue to put myself out there, continue to book new clients all the time for the rest of my career. And that is never something that overly sounded like something that was very appealing to me. It never sounded like something that, oh, wow, I can't wait to go and do that, because I really can't wait to go and look for work. But as a result, I think if you're going out and looking for work, if you're going out and finding your own work, finding your own clients, finding your own people to work with, you can then earn more money. You can definitely earn more money than someone who is not, someone who's just happy to sit in a 9-to-5 job and work for someone else who's going to be able to then go and find them work. They're never going to earn as much money because they're earning the same amount of money, yes, and they're very consistent in that, but you're never going to be able to earn a lot more money. You're never going to be able to increase your prices in that industry, because you can't walk out and charge how much you're worth. You can't control anything on the back end. You're just controlling how many hours you're there at work. And so for me, it was a hard thing to sort of wrap my head around, that unsecure work, wrap my head around the fact that I was going to jump into an industry where for the first few years, it's going to be very hard to maintain work. It's going to be very hard to be able to find work, but then sustain work over the long period of time. And that for me was really hard. I think over the past sort of 12 to 18 months, we've sort of understood that there is no industry really that is secure. I think our old ideas of secure work have really gone out the window with the whole COVID situation, throwing a lot of jobs up in the air and throwing a lot of people out of work for long periods of time. A lot of industries got shut down. A lot of workplaces have changed over. A lot of old workplaces, old industries that are no longer as relevant anymore, with a lot of things moving online. a lot of these industries where we thought the work was very secure is no longer secure. So that in itself, I think, has made me a lot more confident with the decision I made, because to understand that it's just not secure work is great. And I know that, and I'm in very much control of where I head to from here, because I'm in control of the clients that I can go and find. I'm in control of my advertising. I'm in control of the personal brand that I'm trying to set around myself. I'm in control of everything in my own business. It's not like I'm working for someone else where all of a sudden I could be out of a job tomorrow, and I didn't really know about that in the sort of lead up, because I'm not involved in internal workings of that business. So it's very nice to be involved. But then also it comes around with that fact that, yes, I am involved, but there is always uncertainty in there. And that has always been very scary for me. In my business, I was very lucky to have survived COVID. I think last year I was just starting my business at the start of COVID. So COVID didn't really impact me, and all the lockdowns and things like that didn't impact me so much last year. It was a stage in my business where I was growing and expanding and sort of starting a business, really. So having time at home was great, and having time to be out of work and not able to work, it didn't impact me that much because I didn't have work booked in and didn't have anything lined up. And so walking through that, I sort of felt like I'd survived a moment in time almost unscathed, because I was transitioning work during that period anyway, so it gave me time to establish a business. It gave me time to work on it. In the back end, I could do almost all my work from home anyway, so that really didn't matter. And then through the end of last year, I was really starting to build a business as things came out of lockdown here in Australia, and as we started to open back up again, especially in New South Wales and in Sydney where I was, things were opening back up, and I felt like I was moving along in my business. In the early stages of this year then as well, I felt like I was starting to build. I was starting to get more work. I really took the big move of advertising myself as a wedding photographer way back in March now. And that was something that was a long-term play. It was something that I knew was going to be hard to start in. I knew if I didn't already have enough uncertainty in my own business as it was, I was going to add an extra layer on top where the work would probably have to be booked in a long way in advance. And so that work was never going to be able to provide me an income in the here and now. It was probably for more sort of future planning and something that I really wanted to move into. So I knew that I had to get the ball rolling on that as soon as I possibly could. And there was a really good reception around that. I had a lot of work booked in straight away. It was obviously for a lot further in the future, but I had work booked in, and that was really nice to be able to get that work booked in. And I felt like I was moving along fairly well in my business. I felt like every other week there was a new inquiry, there was more work starting to come in. Obviously, moving into wedding photography, the price you can charge on a wedding photography is a lot more than just, say, an afternoon where I go out and take photos with a family, for instance. If I'm doing a half-hour shoot on an afternoon, I obviously can't charge as much as an 8-hour whole afternoon that I would be shooting at a wedding. So the price tag on these jobs that I was starting to collect were really nice and starting to build in the direction that I wanted to be building in, but also building in the direction of the work that I actually really wanted to do. And I was starting to lean heavily into work that I really wanted to do and work that I was really enjoying. And then all of a sudden we got thrown back into lockdown again. And this is really what I wanted to speak on a lot today, because this experience, I think, is something that a lot of people would have probably gone through. There's a lot of people out there who would have thought that they survived that probably first wave of the first lockdown last year, and then had come to halfway through this year, and all of a sudden their whole business was up in the air again, and they weren't as prepared as they probably should have been. And I think for me, that with the uncertainty of the unpreparedness from not having gone through it last year, it sort of set me up that this was probably my first time to really go through it as a business owner. That last year in the lockdown, I was only just starting my business at the start of that lockdown. So it was not as really, I had any work that was thrown out of whack. I didn't have any work that had to be postponed, had to be moved, because I didn't have any work yet. So that whole lockdown didn't really impact me as much as this lockdown did halfway through this year, because I all of a sudden had work booked in. I'd started this wedding photography business back in March. I'd had work booked in for in August. I had another job booked in September. I had a job booked at the end of November that were all of a sudden up in the air. And so it was very hard to sort of wrap my head around what I was initially going to do. As you guys know, I got back from holidays at the end of July. I took a few weeks off at the end of June there, and I got back in early July, and sort of all of a sudden was thrown into lockdown without any heads up, without any sort of planning that would have gone in beforehand. And I know this is a situation that everyone out there can probably relate to, of being thrown into lockdown straight away and not being prepared as much as they probably should have been in that situation. for me, as I came back from that holiday, I think I sat there and I just didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where I was going to head because I'd had to postpone a lot of work that I'd already had built up. It felt like I was really starting to drive in this business and really starting to grow, and things were starting to take shape, and I was starting to get new inquiries, and I was starting to book work for the back half of the year. It was obviously very tough launching a wedding photography business in March as we sort of end out the whole wedding photography season there. People typically don't get married in winter, so starting off in spring again was really when I was going to start my business back up again and start to really move and head out and go take more photos after the winter was over. And all of a sudden that was sort of stripped away from me. It wasn't only that really threw me about. I was also starting to look at my whole financial status and starting to look where I was with my own finances in my business. It was the end of financial year and I was starting to put my tax return in and starting to have a look at how much money I'd had in my business. And it all of a sudden hit me that I'd only had about $800 to $1,000 to my name. And whilst that may sound like a large amount, a small amount, depending on where you are, it was really impactful for me. And it was a hard position to be in because I thought, how am I going to make any more money? I'm all of a sudden in a position where I can't work. I can't go out there and provide the service that I do. The only thing that I do to be able to earn an income is to go provide these services to people, is to go out and be able to take photos for people. And all of a sudden I'm being told that I'm not allowed to do that. And it was a very scary situation for me because I didn't know what I was going to do to be able to earn more money. I didn't know how I was going to be able to survive, really. I've always known that position could always happen, but until it actually happens, I don't think it hits you as hard. You always think that, it'll be right. You keep moving it on, you keep moving it back and thinking that, yeah, I might be out of money eventually, but who knows? You can always move it back. But it's not until that point hits you that you think, I don't know how I'm going to make any money here. I don't know how I'm going to earn money in the foreseeable future, that it really starts to strike me. And I know that I'm in a very privileged position. I know that I have friends and family out there who would have helped me had I ever have gone down a path where I didn't have any money to my name. I know that I would have never ended up on the streets, but it still hits me hard in the fact of thinking that in my business, I could have had no income for the foreseeable future. And I didn't, in fact, for the next few months, and thinking that that was going to be a position that I could be in, and I could also be completely out of money, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue on in this business. I would never want anyone else to be in that position, but I think, unfortunately, a lot of people probably were in that position at the stage halfway through this year, where there were a fair few businesses out there that thought, I don't know how long we're going to be in this for. I don't know how much further we can continue on just like this. And so that was something for me that I was really starting to come to grips with, was how was I going to continue on in this business? It's great that I've made all these improvements, and it's great that I've made so much progress in my business thus far, but all that doesn't really mean anything if we can't keep continuing on in business, if we can't maintain, if we can't actually keep a roof over our head because we haven't got any money. So all that progress is great, but it's hard to be able to see the future when you're so far stuck in that hole. I remember I even went to the point of actually going and looking for a new job and thinking that all of this might be over. I may not be able to sustain this long term. I may need to be able to find another source of income. I may need to be able to find another job because, unfortunately, I don't have any money left. Unfortunately, there's no income in the foreseeable future, and I can't go out and actually book work. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I also came to the point with that there was no one out there actually hiring anyone because we all went into lockdown anyway. And I did actually apply for a few jobs, and I was unsuccessful on all of those jobs because they all said that they weren't hiring, or there were heaps of people out there applying for jobs at that time. So it was very hard to be able to get a job. And then I really thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to survive here. And I've really described this whole situation as sort of financial anxiety because I don't know how else to describe it. It really hit me hard. And I think it wasn't until I got to that point that I realized where I was. I didn't realize I was sliding into that until I was in that hole. It started to impact me in ways where I didn't have any creativity anymore. I didn't have any drive to be able to even be out of bed in the morning. I didn't want to be able to wake up and start the day because I knew that the day was going to end in I didn't know where it was going to end. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was able to do. And there were a few weeks there where, I didn't feel like I wanted to get out of bed. I didn't feel like I wanted to go and do work because I couldn't see what the whole point of it was. I felt like I'd been working so hard for so long and for not much to have come from that, to still be in this position where feeling like I'm out of money and I'm not able to do things I enjoy. I'm not able to go and able to do anything that I really want to do because I'm not in a financial position to be able to do that. Even though I feel like I'm working as hard as I possibly can, there is nothing sort of starting to come from that. And it was a very hard place to be in. And it really probably took me a few weeks to be able to get out of that. I didn't want to go do anything because I felt like everything was pointless anyway. And there was no need to, I didn't think there was anything I could do that could possibly help that situation because I felt so out of control of anything that I could possibly do. I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel at that point. I couldn't see where I possibly was going to go from there. And it wasn't until probably a few weeks later that I started to feel some sense of normalcy, some sense of that I was starting to come back, that I really had some sort of drive and ambition back. It hit me hard because I think for a long time I'd been that ambitious person. I'd been someone that had a lot of drive, and I have a really strong why behind why I want to do what I do. But in that couple of weeks, it felt like it was all gone. It felt like there was no point trying to do anything because at the end of the day, what was it worth if I wasn't able to go out there and work, if I wasn't able to go and do the things that I really enjoyed, if I wasn't able to go and do anything that I enjoyed in my life because I A, don't have the money to be able to go and do them because I'm out of money, or B, I'm not allowed to do them because we're in lockdown, so I couldn't really think of anything that I wanted to do in that moment. And so it was very hard. And really for me, experiencing that, it really, as I said, it did take me a few weeks, but once I got out of that, it really sort of started to drive me. It started to make me feel like I never want to be in that place again. And so I don't want to say that I'm glad that I went through that situation, but I am, because I think that has started to drive me, and I think it will continue to drive me from here on in. And I hope to never be in that position again where I feel like I'm so out of control of anything that I can possibly do that I just don't have any will to get out of bed in the morning. That's never a place that I want to be in. That's never a place I would wish on anyone, to think that is something that you don't want to, in that the thing that you really enjoyed is so much of a chore and so much of a strain on you that you feel like you can't ever do that again. So that was a position I'm in, but I felt like once I started to get out of it, I felt that it was going to drive me, and it really did. I think it really helped me to move on, because there's only so long you can stay in that situation. For me, it was probably 3 weeks, and then I started to be able to get back out of it again. It was hard, but I knew I had to do something. I knew I had to try in any way that I possibly could. I think the biggest learning for me was that I'm in such a vulnerable position here. I was never in a position to be able to go through that. I never had set myself up right to be able to go through a month or a few months where I had no work. I'd never sat down and thought about what that scenario could be, because I was too busy focused on trying to be able to get work, trying to be able to book work, trying to be able to have work in the future, trying to improve my business, upgrade my business, trying to always move on to the next thing, that I never stopped to look back and think, hang on a minute, what happens if something drastic happens in my life that I can't work for a few months? What happens if, I injure myself? What happens if, heaven forbid, I was in hospital for a few months and I wasn't able to work? Obviously there were other things around that, and I know I would have people to help me in my life, but that's not the point. I think the point for me was that I'd realized that I wasn't actually in a position that I could have that emergency happen and be able to survive through it, because I'd gotten to a point where all of a sudden I wasn't able to work, and there I was feeling like it was the end of the world, feeling like I wasn't able to do anything else ever again. I had no drive, no ambition to do anything. And so that is really where it hit me, that I was so vulnerable in that moment, that if all of a sudden anything like this happens ever again, that how am I going to work through it? And so for me, really thinking about that and thinking about where I can have an emergency, thinking about how much money I need to have aside in case these things happen again, thinking about how much money I need to earn in my business every now and again, how much far ahead do I need to be? Do I need to have some sort of safety net to fall back on? Because as I know, this industry and the work in this industry is unsecure anyway. So anything could happen at any time. The other big learning for me was that I really needed to be able to diversify my income. I needed to be able to diversify streams of income, because there are obviously things that were still able to happen whilst we were in lockdown. And so you probably would have seen me sort of start to go more into advertising my prints, advertising other forms of things online, advertising those sort of hard products that I was trying to be able to sell. It was always something that I really wanted to do. It was great that I had the spare time to be able to do those, but also that came out of necessity, that I needed to be able to make some sort of money at that present time. And so whilst it is something I enjoy, I knew I needed to diversify myself into that. I needed to be able to sell some products, use my photography in the best way that I possibly could to be able to make an income whilst we were in lockdown, whilst I was unable to go do other work, use my portfolio to be able to make as much income as I possibly could on that and try to make that sustainable. So I've been really leaning into that over the past couple of months, and I've been really enjoying it. I've found that I can actually make money my prints. I can make money through my art and through my other photography. So being able to do that opens me up to a larger audience. And so it's going to be something that I continue to do. And I'm very glad that I had that time. I'm glad that I went through that, because I don't think I would have restarted on my print store after the things that I went through last year. I didn't think that it would be sustainable. But I think once I sort of narrowed it down to something that I wanted to do this year, it really became something that was really positive. And so I would really want to be able to move into that a lot more. And then it started me thinking on, are there other things that I can do? Are there other things that I can use my skills to be able to make more money in my business and be able to use skills that I have to make money online, to be able to make money not only through physical products, but also through digital products as well. So I've been researching that heavily. That's been something that I've gone down the rabbit hole of quite a lot, in being able to sell some sort of digital products online, to be able to make an income off that. If this were ever to happen again, I still want to be able to make an income online. And it's part of my whole process of wanting to be able to have my business be able to move around a lot, be able to move and not be ever stuck in one location, be able to put things online, I think is the ultimate way to be able to have your business be able to move quite a bit. And so how can I sell digital products online, and how can I move into that industry so that I am prepared if ever something like this were to happen again? And then the other big thing it taught me was, where am I sort of focusing my time? Am I focusing my time on the right amount of things? Am I focusing my time on the products and on the services that are the highest value to me? Am I spending too much time on things that aren't providing me enough value, but aren't providing me enough income as well? You know, there's no point spending all my day working on something if it's not going to provide me any sort of income, if I'm not going to get equally compensated for that, if there's no outcome for it. Is it something that I can sustainably work on? And it really hit me like that there are some things that I was working on in my business that probably weren't going to earn me heaps of money. They were probably things that I enjoyed, but I needed to be able to diversify those and sort of aim those in a way that they were able to make me money. You know, think about the things that I spend most of my time on, and think that I need to be able to putting most of my time into the things that earn me the most amount of money. So working a lot harder on my wedding photography, working a lot harder on my advertising, working a lot harder on my own branding and things like that, and things that will drive clients and drive people to inquire with me, drive new business in the future, because that is the most important thing to me. It's no point having your Instagram up to scratch if you have no clients. There's no point of having all the gear if you've got no clients. So spending time and researching things that aren't going to make you any money is great, because it can help extra on your business. But if you don't have any clients, you can't actually do anything with those things. So making sure, first and foremost, that I'm prioritizing trying to get as many clients as I possibly can. And then not only being able to get clients, but then working on my own prices as well. That was something that I really went back on hard, was looking at how much I was charging for my work. Was I equally compensating myself for the work that I was trying to do? You know, in the beginning of my business, it was clear that I needed to build up my prices, but I think that whole experience escalated that, and it made me really take more value in my work and take more pride in my work, because I know that this is something that I really want to do long term. And so I don't want to be undercharging myself. I don't want to be working out there for free forever. You know, that's never something that I want to be. You know, I really want to position myself as early as possible to provide a quality service. So I feel like I should be fairly compensated for that, and being able to charge the right amount and working on my prices and having a look at the different things that I could do in my prices to be able to make myself into that service that people would actually book and people would actually pay an amount for, so that I'm not this stressed heading into the future. And lastly, I think the main thing that it taught me was to only do what you love. And over the past couple of months, I've sort of transitioned away from trying to do things that I don't overly enjoy. You know, there are styles in photography that I don't enjoy. I was working in those before, but I think that after this, it's made me have to put an emphasis on being able to do the things I enjoy. If I'm going to get in a position like this again, if I'm going to have this much stress, if it's going to be this hard, I may as well make it as hard whilst trying to do the things that I enjoy. You know, there's no point being out there working in an area that you don't enjoy and then it also being stressful. You know, you don't need all that on top. You may as well work in an area that you really enjoy. And so I've been trying to really narrow down on the things that I enjoy and trying to go hard at the things that I really love. I love shooting weddings. I've really worked that out over the past few months, over the past year. And that's something that I really enjoy. I really enjoy that connection that I have with the clients, and I really enjoy being able to provide that service on the day. And so really trying to go hard at that and removing the other work that I was trying to do. I felt like I'd spread myself way too thin, and I was working in too many areas because I was trying to focus so much more on being able to earn an income, being able to just have any work that I could possibly have. And as a result, I think that spread myself too thin, that I wasn't able to be in a position where I was an expert at one thing. And that whole situation really helped me to understand that I should only be working in the area that I love, because then it will work out for me in the end, because I'll be then seen as the expert in that one area, and I won't have to do as much marketing in all these different areas. In the end, it is really helping me, because I don't have to be able to spend my time in all these different areas. I can just work in this one area that it may be hard initially, but I know in the long term it's going to be really helpful for me. So just rounding out this episode, do I think that photography is a sustainable career, or any artistic career is sustainable? Yes, I do. I really think that that's able to be a sustainable career. Are you going to be able to earn a sustainable income in that career? I think you most definitely can. And I think that's been proven over and over again. I think there are enough people in the industry to be able to show you that examples of where that is able to be the case. I think there is enough out there to go around, and I think it's able to be a very successful career and a very sustainable career in the long term. Is an artistic career a hard one to be able to go into? Absolutely. I think any artistic career is very hard to start in, but I also think that it's able to be very rewarding. In fact, I know it's able to be very rewarding, because I very much enjoy what I do. I very much enjoy the things that I'm able to do in my own business and in my own life as a whole. So I'm very glad in the decision that I made to start this business. I knew it was going to be hard at the start, and it has been hard, but I think in the end it's worth it. And I think moving through these experiences and moving through the experiences that you will have, you can only learn from them. You can only learn, you can only grow from them. And I think I've taken so much away from this experience in the way that it's impacted me. And I know there'll be other people out there that have been impacted by very similar experiences that may have been impacted a completely different way. They may have learned completely different things from them. And I think that shows that how much is able to be taken away from that, and how much it comes down to your own personality, and how much you can learn and you can grow from yourself. Because at the end of the day, we need to be able to grow from ourselves. We need to be able to do things that we enjoy. We need to be able to have a look inward and really see what it is that drives us, and what it is that ultimately makes us happy and makes us sustainable in being able to grow a business that we really love. And so with that said, guys, that is where I'm going to leave today's episode. I hope you did really enjoy this one. As I said at the beginning, remember that my 2022 calendars are for sale right now. So there will only be a few left of them. If you want to jump over onto the website, it'll be linked down below. But if you did enjoy this episode, guys, I would really appreciate it if you did share the episode around. I've always said that. And I really appreciate everyone who's been sharing episodes around. I've been getting so much support recently, and it's been really nice. It's been really nice to be able to hear from so many new people, and so many people who have just recently started tuning into the podcast and are really enjoying episodes. And it's really heartwarming for me to be able to continue making these episodes, because I know that they are impacting a lot of people out there. So if you have enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you did share it around, or if you did just want to message me on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you guys. I always love getting messages from anyone who listens to the podcast. But with that said, guys, I hope you have a great week, and I will speak to you all again next Monday, I think. I don't know when the next episode will be out, but I think it's going to be on Monday. So have a great weekend, guys, and I will speak to you all then. Bye.